Hey yo, what is up? Welcome to Ninja Geek Games. Renegade Game Studios have produced some of my favourite solo games such as Proving Grounds and Warp's Edge. Garfield Games have followed up the North Sea trilogy with the West Kingdom series, and Paladins of the West Kingdom is one of those. This is a 1 to 4 player worker placement game set in a time of heraldry, knights and chivalry. In this game you need to allocate various workers such as clerics, fighters and merchants in order to gain resources to support the development of your city by fighting or converting enemies, utilising the skills of the townsfolk and building fortifications, just to name a few. In order to do this you need to find ways to increase your influence, faith and strength attributes to allow you to continue taking actions as your city develops. In this video we'll take a look at the components and gameplay of Paladins, as well as taking a close look at its expansion. Nice, City of Crowns, and this adds various board extensions, additional mechanics and more cards. Let's take a look at the components. So the base game comes with a stack of content that can be quite deceiving based on the size of the box. There are over 100 meeples of 6 types that are required for specific actions on the player board. Of the other meeple-esque components, each player starts the game with a number of workshops, outposts, monks and jars. These all begin the game on the player boards and can be moved to gain benefits on both player boards and the main board. There are about 200 cards in total with some awesome artwork. There are Paladin cards that each player utilises at the start of the round, Townsfolk that can give instant benefits or recruited for ongoing abilities, and Outsider cards that provide gold for endgame scoring. Other decks include King cards for objectives and unique actions, tax and debt cards that can reduce victory points, wall cards to fortify your city, and tavern cards that give you free beer. Well, no, that's not true. They give you worker meeples for each round, which is also nice. Lastly, there are copious amounts of silver coins and provision tokens that are used to pay for actions in addition to placing workers. Each player gets their own giant player board. Now, although they look kind of busy, once you understand the notion behind each action, the iconography is actually fairly simple. This is your attribute track for faith, strength and influence, and also contain victory point bonuses earned at the end game for each attribute reaching that level. There are 12 different actions which all show the required number of workers and specific type, the requirements of cost for the actions plus any rewards. The top of the board has an area built for walls, and the bottom for outsiders you have converted to your cause. The main board is a long sliver of land split into 2 parts. Here are where the King's Favour and Order cards are placed, and on the right hand side are the commission and garrison areas that provide immediate bonuses if you have the required strength or faith attribute. On top of the main board there are areas for townsfolk cards and the bottom for the outsiders. Once the game is set up, it's a bit of a table eater. The main board stretches a good length across the table, and the player boards, although pretty, are quite big, plus each player needs room around the boards for collected cards and resources. Regardless, it looks incredible set up, and everything is marked with icons and no text. The artwork is bright and bold and just makes the game so inviting. But we've only looked at the components, and I bet you're wondering how it plays. As you may have guessed from the fact that the boards have areas for placing workers, plus I've mentioned it a few times already, Paladins of the West Kingdom is a worker placement game with engine building mechanics. Now, I'm not going to go over all the details on how every action works, but instead give you an overview on how to take actions as well as the various areas of the board. Where in most worker placement games I've played, each round you get a number of standard workers. Here, you get to select which type of workers to claim this round, although you don't have full control over this. There are 2 ways which this is carried out. Firstly, at the start of each round, you lay out a number of tavern cards equal to the number of players plus 1. Again, these don't provide any form of ale, but instead give you options for the types of workers available, where you'll need to choose 1 card. Secondly, each player draws 3 of their Paladin cards and selects just 1. These cards provide 2 additional workers, a temporary boost to your attribute values, and a special ability for that round. What I like here is that after choosing your card, the other 2 cards are placed in your draw deck, one on top and the other on the bottom, so you do have some element of control for the next round. So why is worker type so important? Well, if you're thinking of taking a military-based action, you'll need a fighter. Want to fortify or gain provisions? Then take a scout. The labourers are your run-of-the-mill standard workers, and purple workers are naughty criminals. These act as wildcards, meaning they represent workers of any type, but due to some unseen underhand tactics used to acquire their service, you need to take a suspicion card for each criminal you take at any time. Suspicion cards provide you with silver, but it's taken from embezzling money from the tax pot. Yes, this appears as free money, but if the tax ever runs dry, then the player with the most suspicious card now takes a debt card that can give you negative victory points at the end of the game, unless they can find a way to rid of it, so be warned. When taking actions, there are a few things you need to consider. Firstly, does it have a cost that is in silver or provisions, and does it require you to have reached a certain level within one of your attributes? Next is how many and what type of worker is required. Let's take a look. Trade and hunt actions do not have any costs or attribute prerequisites. These spaces are transparent and therefore any worker type can be placed there for the benefit. If you wanted a few more goodies, you'd also need to place a worker of the specific type in addition to gain the greater rewards. Other actions make use of your attributes. Anywhere you see an action title enclosed within coloured icons means that the action requires a particular attribute, in this instance strength, but rewards by increasing a different attribute, here influence. As well as attribute requirements, some of the actions also show a resource cost that increases more often you take that action. As an example of rewards, attack and convert actions provide you with outsider cards to claim either as a one-time benefit or endgame scoring, depending on which action and attribute you use to claim the card. Both commission and garrison actions make use of and reward different attributes, but allow you to place monks and outposts in areas of the main board to gain rewards and block other players from taking those rewards for the remainder of the game. Fortify allows you to build walls, but the attribute requirement increases with each build, plus the rewards are hidden until revealed. What you may have noticed is that the actions that make use of attributes require 3 workers, with the middle space always being transparent. Also, around the first 2 worker spaces of each of those actions is a faint dotted square, and this makes use of another important action. The develop action is costly, but if fulfilled, it means you can move a workshop to permanently sit over any meeple space to make that action cheaper in worker allocation for the rest of the game. Plus, each of those actions can hold up to 2 buildings. And this is a great mechanic for the game, especially since there are 12 action spaces where the workshops can be placed, but only 8 workshops available. Grrr. This means careful planning based on your own goals, plus those revealed during the game that need to be considered. This is especially true for the first 3 rounds where the King's Order cards are revealed, indicating which actions provide the endgame scoring bonuses. This means players could be competing for the better areas to place monks on the main board, or claiming the most useful outsider card, for example, or both. For the latter 5 rounds, King Favour cards are revealed that provide unique actions that can only be used once per round, so you need to act fast as these actions can be blocked by other players. So I've not gone into detail on the specifics of actions, but have clearly shown what you have to do to manage your resources effectively, take actions to boost attributes that then allow for greater rewards from subsequent actions, as well as taking into consideration revealed or gained scoring bonuses. All I've described here is the base game, but the expansion City of Crowns adds additional cards, board extensions, new mechanics and a new attribute, diplomacy. There are 2 main board extensions that make the main board longer. One is associated with mustering and negotiate actions, and the other creates more opportunities for the garrison and commission actions. And what this also does is increase the number of revealed Townsfolk and outsider cards available to each player for the rounds. Each player also gets a new sideboard that provides areas for the negotiate and muster actions, a diplomacy marker and 4 new paladin cards. Here players now draw 4 of these cards each round, carry out the same process as the base game, but they now have to discard the 4th card from the game and you'll never see it again. Additional cards for the base game decks are just shuffled into those decks, and players get a 9th workshop building that they can add to any action before the game starts. We also have a number of new actions that include muster and negotiate. The first action makes use of the left side of the muster cards that requires a worker and possible resource and provides a benefit. The placed worker is then left in this space and never cleared unless it can be claimed through negotiate. Now, as in life, being able to negotiate is very important, and I'll give you an example. My wife wanted a dog, I didn't, so we negotiated, and we now have a dog. After placing workers in the muster action on the player board, you can claim one of the muster cards. First, move this cool looking diplomat meeple to any card you desire, first paying the number of provisions you moved over. Then ensure you have the required attribute level, as this varies per card with regards to level and type. Then gain 1 diplomacy, any reward, as well as any meeple another player has kindly left you that can now be used. The muster card then sits by your player board for victory points. For the negotiate action, you can choose whether to entrust nobles to carry out a free action for you with a temporary boosted attribute, or enlist them that can provide victory points and allies. Be careful, if you negotiate poorly, you could end up with a dog. The entrust action requires silver and diplomacy, but if achieved, you get to take the associated action with no cost immediately that is indicated with a super boost to the attribute. Enlisting through negotiation requires silver and specific attribute levels but rewards diplomacy. If gained, it sits by your player board where you aim to collect these different symbols. These reward a large value of victory points at the end of the game, but gaining 3 matching icons allows you to claim an ally card that grants additional workers each round. Paladins of the West Kingdom is a great worker placement game. Although the player interaction is somewhat limited when compared to other worker placement games, it's not non-existent. Taking powerful outsider or townsfolk cards that other players have been eyeing up is rewarding, as well as pinching sought after spots on the main board with commission or garrison actions. Purposely taking criminals to empty the tax area, knowing who will gain the debt card is exceptionally fun to do. Plus, claiming other players' workers from the muster card develops an aura of smugness when the worker later provides a huge gain. This expansion makes a really good game pretty damn awesome. It opens up so many more opportunities as well as game variability that you just can't help to enjoy every play. Paladins also has a very solid solo variant that I really enjoy. The AI has varying levels of difficulty from easily to insanely hard, but offers me a fantastic gaming experience with tactical play. The theme and artwork go hand in hand brilliantly, and although I haven't played any of the other games in the series, if they play half as good as Paladins, then I'll definitely be checking them out. There is a lot going on, taking into account what abilities your townfolk have, what endgame scoring mechanics you are developing, as well as how to best utilise your worker types, where and in which order can be challenging but is exceptionally rewarding part of the game. Paladins is now certainly one of my favourite worker placement games, and the expansion gets a big thumbs up from me. This is Ninja Geek Games. Cheers.